Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade and Justice in for another program to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy and racism. Um, we're fundraising, hopefully broadcasting every day for the month of June. Invest if you think the program is constructive. There should be links in the description. You can also support Justice. Her blog is Just Do Justice Today.blogspot.com. You can support her, support the program if you think it's constructive. Context of White Supremacy. The wish list as well. That's at Amazon.com under Gus T Renegade. Please support Context of White Supremacy. With that, our guest for today's program, he's been with us repeatedly. Always a privilege to have him on the program. I think he's a lot less confused about racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. I know tons of our listeners. He has provided so much clarity for them. If you actually want to order a copy of the code book or the word guide, you can click the link. It should be in the description if you are listening at TalkShoe. If not, it's real easy. The link you can click is tiny.cc/Fuller. Very simple. I can spell it out. TINY.cc/Fuller. And the forward slash, that is, if you look on your keyboard where the question mark is, the symbol that is below the question mark, that's the forward slash. So one more time, to order either the word guide or the code book, tiny.cc/Fuller, Fuller. Joining us live on the Context of White Supremacy, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, are you with us?
I'm here.
Outstanding. Thank you again for sharing so much of your time with us. As I said, it's always, we're really grateful to have you on the program. We appreciate you being so generous with your time. As I said, I want to get right to the phone lines and give folks an opportunity if they have some questions to ask you, if they want to get anything cleared up that you've written or things that they might have heard you say. Before I hit the phone lines, is there anything you would like to share with the audience?
Yes, sir. You said what now?
I just said, is it anything that you would like to share with listeners before we go to the phone lines?
Oh, they can just call right in, straight on.
Okay.
And we'll exchange views. I'll answer questions if they have some.
All righty. I will give out the number if you want to dial in. 2 lines open. The number if you want to dial in at free HD, 760-569-7676, and the code 564-943#. You can see the switchboard should be good to go. If you called in at TalkShoe and you have a question for Mr. Fuller, you can press *8, and I can get your line. We're going directly to the phone line. All the people that called in, we're not going to be lazy today. Press *8. There are a lot of people calling in already, so just press *8 if you have a question, and I can get your line, get you on and go to Mr. Fuller. We're going to the phone lines immediately, so as soon as you press *8, we can get you on the line. Righty. I'll give folks an opportunity to get in. I'll double check. Mr. Fuller, you are working on an updated version of the code. Is that correct?
Yes, a revised and expanded edition of the basic book. The book that's out there now, the word guide, is just an expansion of the basic book. The basic book that's out there now, also it will be an expansion of the updated expanded version of the basic book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, textbook workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism, defined as white supremacy. Now, the expanded version will also be used with the word guide that's now out, available now.
And again, folks, if you're listening, if you do not have the word guide or the code book, you can get them both. The link, it should be in the description. All you need to do is type in tiny.cc/Fuller. Very easy. It'll take you, you'll see the sheet. You can just print it out, and it should have all the information, the price for the book or the books. You can get them together if you want to. So tiny.cc/Fuller. And you can pick up copies of the books. Again, all the folks that are called in on TalkShoe, if you have a question, press *8, and we can get you on to speak with Mr. Fuller. Press *8, doing questions the whole program. So if you would like clarification directly from Mr. Fuller, press *8, and we can get you on. Co-author of Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. Pam, your line is open.
Good evening, Mr. Fuller. Good evening, Gus.
Good evening.
I'm so glad that you graced us with this, with being able to get some enlightenment on white supremacy. I did want to get some thoughts from you. I know a lot of times we talk about interracial relationships or sex, and a lot of times the focus is on the black male and the white female. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on black females and white males, because I noticed this trend, it seems to me, that a lot of older white males are now approaching black females. And I've had different female friends tell me that, and I've noticed that even with myself, that older white males are very aggressive now toward black females. And I just wonder what your thoughts were on this phenomena.
Well, any kind of sexual interaction, sexual intercourse, and or sexual play between white people and non-white people, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, as long as the system of white supremacy exists, this is not considered constructive activity. And it's not considered constructive activity because it's not an equal situation. The non-white partner, whether it be male or female, is a subject of the system of white supremacy. So you have for all functional purposes, you have a warden-prisoner type interaction there. You have one person who is a disadvantage. That would be the non-white person, whatever that non-white person is. Now, if there were no such thing as racism and or white supremacy, then it would just be, you might say, male meets female, and sexual intercourse, sexual play could take place, and with no problem. But seeing as how the problem of racism has not been solved, that would be the first logical order of business. And that's not the best way to go about solving it, by having this type of interaction, because this type of interaction has gone on right from the beginning of the system of white supremacy. And it has not proven to be an effective way of eliminating the system of racism. So you would start with doing what you might call the other area of activity, businesses. Like if you start just with the first area of activity, economics, the use of time and energy and money and materials and resources, you get that straight. Then you move to number 2, education. And then you clean up the entertainment field and make that more constructive where non-white people are concerned. And then the labor problem worldwide between white and non-white. And then, of course, politics and religion and on and on. All of the areas of activity. And you, logically speaking, would save the sex act for last. Like almost every female and every male kind of understands that worldwide. I mean, even people who are extremely primitive, they kind of get an understanding first about all the other areas of activity, the economic situation that they have, the educational situation that they have, what would be the future of the offspring if they have any, and all like that. All that is mapped out somewhat, some type of frame of reference in advance of any sexual contact or something of sexual content, sexual intercourse, sexual play. And that's just normal between, or considered to be normal, between just one male and one female, even in isolated situations where there's nobody else around. But usually they sit down at a table or whatever and get some kind of understanding about other matters first. They become familiar with one another on levels that have to do with the other areas of activity. Find out what their basic interests are in, both together, etc., etc. Not just jump in bed and then after they have sexual intercourse or engage in all the sexual play they want, then start saying, well, we hope that the world situation will change so that our situation will become normal, maybe one of these days. But in the meantime, we're just going to just go along in this raggedy fashion like we always have. And the evidence shows that that hasn't been working very well. Nowhere on the planet up to this very moment, because you can't solve any major problem between the people of this planet. That's the premise. Until you solve the race problem. The race problem is what gets in the way. Arguments about what color someone is gets in the way of all major constructive activity in all of the areas of activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. It always runs into a problem. So you don't want to start off with the sexual activity and more or less walk before the world and say, well, that's the area to start with. Forget about the educational system. Forget about the job situation. Put all that on hold. Let's just jump in bed, and then when we get out of bed, we just hope that everything works out on its own. Shouldn't be done like that. That's not the business-like way of approaching it. And that's not the correct way of approaching anything that has to do with interaction between people. Save the bed for last. That's the perspective. And that is a suggestion, just like everything in the counter-racist codification is a suggestion, what I have written anyway, because it's called the United Independent System. And so you just put that out as a suggestion. So you don't have to do it in anger or anything like that. You just say, well, how about just postponing all of the bedroom thing until we get get a good understanding, get an excellent understanding, rather, a constructive understanding in all of the other areas of activity. So we'll know where we're going with all this. So that the non-white person is not always engaging in activity in a blind fashion on the basis of nothing but hope, but nothing constructive in place to support what you're doing, what you're getting into. Nothing. No indication of no promise of anything. That's the view. Does that answer the question, or is there something else that needs to be said on that? Because I might not be covering it in the manner in which the question was asked in the best manner.
Yeah, that answers it. Sorry. Yes.
Yes, and what does an individual... Yes, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Now, what did she say? What did she say?
Pam?
Oh, no, I just said
Is
go
she
ahead.
still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, did that answer the question more or less?
Yes, you did.
I try to give thorough answers. Is that a thorough answer, or did you have another part of that was that you had some question about?
Actually, I did have just a real quick follow-up, and that was, do you believe that, well, I'll save it for later. I'll let someone else get on. But, yes, I did answer my original question. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Pam, if you want to go ahead and ask your follow-up, this is what happens when people are lazy. With one person, they can ask a lot of questions. So, yeah, feel free, Pam.
Okay. Oh, all right, Mr. Fuller, I wanted to know what your thoughts were on, I believe, given what I've been seeing in the media, I recently saw a video where the government of Sweden is promoting sex between black males and white females. And when you look at the American media, especially, they promote a lot of interracial sex, particularly between black males and white females in the reality shows and the TV shows. And I wondered if you, given that this is a strategy that they've used historically to create this mulatto buffer class that will work against the interests of non-white people, do you see a similar pattern? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, these are racist acts as long as they're taking place in the system of racism, because it's taking advantage of people who are already in a weak position, and it's making the people not stronger. It's making the non-white people weaker. All of this sexual activity and so-called homosexual activity and the lesbianism that is being pushed by the white supremacists among non-white people. It's not designed to make non-white people stronger than they already are. It's designed to make them weaker. Weaker in mind, weaker in body, in many ways, and definitely weaker in having focus on the type of people that people ought to be, both white people and non-white people, should be trying to produce on this planet. A type of people that have never really existed before as far as recorded history is concerned, as far as I know. And that is universal man and universal woman that would have the best of characteristics of all people, whether they are white or non-white. People who have the best of characteristics, not the worst of characteristics. The white supremacists always want to start off with black people with little experiments of different kinds without having any kind of plan about how that's going to be a grand improvement over what has been. They just experiment with black people and say, well, let's just do this with black people. Let's just do this with the non-white people. Let's just try this on for size and hope that maybe, we can get some benefit out of it, because under the system of white supremacy, any scheme they come up with is always for the benefit of strengthening the system of white supremacy. That's the main thing to keep in mind. That's why you should have in mind, first of all, what plan do you have for eliminating the system of white supremacy and replacing it with a better system. And that better system, logically speaking, in a constructive manner, would be a system of justice, which, according to the definition given in the Word Guide and in the basic book, a system that consists of two basic elements as the definition of justice, and that is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, something has never been done, but just because something has never been done doesn't say that it shouldn't be done. And it should be the aim, even if you never achieve it. That should be the aim. We shouldn't just be going around just doing things, which the white supremacists have always led non-white people into just doing things. No constructive plan, no sitting down and talking about where all of it is going to finally lead, what kind of people we will be 50 years from now if we do all of these things they're coming up with. All of the things you see going on around you, is it an improvement? Does that mean in 50 years we're going to be the type of people that people should be, whatever that is? And certainly it should be people who practice justice at all times in all areas of activity. In another 50 years, that certainly should be one of the results of everything that goes on. And if anything looks like it's not leading in that direction, and that you're leading in the direction of having more chaos and confusion and conflict, which seems to be what the white supremacists under their jurisdiction are always fomenting. Seems like everything among non-white people, among black people, when you walk up and down the street and when you look at the things that go on from week to week, it's just conflict, death, destruction, hostility, all types of behavior that when you look at it, you wonder. I mean, if you're looking at whether it's pants hanging off of someone or whether it's someone going to get tattooed all over their body, I mean, you ask yourself, is this constructive behavior? Is this what we would say should be the ultimate in the production of universal man and universal woman, people who are in tune with the universe? Are these characteristics that will help to produce that and maintain it? And just nonstop sexual activity of all kinds and anti-sexual activity and gender confusion of all kinds. Just say that doesn't make any difference what gender anybody is. I mean, gender doesn't matter. Gender doesn't serve any purpose. Identifying people as male and female, that's a bunch of foolishness. Well, we don't have any proof that that's a bunch of foolishness. We don't have any track record showing where that's a bunch of foolishness. Now, it may be. It may be that this whole thing about people being males and females, I mean, never should have been in the first place. I don't know. But I don't think so. And I don't think that just jumping up and declaring it, just because the people got, you put it on television and put it in books and put it in the schools and say that, anything is everything and everything is anything and nothing matters, and just do it and think about it later. Maybe that's not the way to go, particularly for people who are in a weak position and who have weak minds and who have been kept in a position of having very, very weak minds, very weak-minded people, which is what the black people of this planet have been engineered into being by the white supremacists, cutting you off from anything where you have to, or required, or you have an inclination to do serious thinking. But frivolous thinking about anything, where you're serious about everything that's silly and silly about everything that's serious. And under the system of white supremacy, that's what black people are supposed to be at all times. Silly about everything that's serious and serious about everything that's silly. And logic would tell us that that's not the best format. At least, just logic would tell us that. Should be serious about serious things. And look at silly things like for what they are. It's silly. Stand back and evaluate it and say, now wait a minute. Is this something that should be done? And if so, why? Is it constructive? Is there any reason to believe that it's constructive? And if so, why? And what will be the result of whatever the activity is? Say 10, 15, 40, 80 years down the road. Will it be a grand improvement over what has been? Or will it be something worse? Or the status quo? Because things are not the way they should be right now. The so-called status quo. They are not the way they should be. People do not interact nowhere close to the way people should interact with each other on this planet. Just a thought, just a suggestion, and this viewpoint that I'm putting out now, I think, should be promoted in the form of questions. And the basic question is, what's constructive about it? Why is it constructive? Do you know what the results will be? In any of these areas of activity, particularly in the area of sex and sexual play.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, ma'am.
Person that called in from California that had a question, and if you have a question for Mr. Fuller, press *8, and I can get your question. I'll open the chat room up at the bottom of the hour and see if you all have questions as well. Person in California, go right ahead.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I hear.
Greetings, Mr. Fuller. I wanted to ask you about the starting point. Has anybody ever called your viewpoint a philosophy, and how do you feel about that term, philosophy? You have a problem with it, or have you thought about it, and would you call your viewpoint philosophy?
Philosophy? No, I don't. Not to my knowledge. I imagine down through the years in which I've been doing what I'm doing, someone may have called it that. A philosophy, by definition, I think, is just a viewpoint. I'm talking about a simple definition. Certainly, that would be the definition that I would use. It's just a viewpoint, and everybody has a philosophy. Everybody is a philosopher that has a viewpoint on anything. When you voice your opinion on anything, that's a philosophical view. That's basically what any philosophy is, just a viewpoint, a way of seeing things, a way of expressing things, toward sometimes a particular end for the most part. In other words, you're saying you're trying to achieve something. Most viewpoints are trying to achieve something, even if it's just raising other viewpoints, questions about other viewpoints. Those are philosophical approaches. So everybody who has a viewpoint on anything, everybody who has something to say about something, is functionally, according to logic, a philosopher.
Okay. Yeah, I understood that. So the basis of the I would call it philosophy, but anyway, the basis, I guess the starting point would be that non-white people would have to see themselves as victims. I mean, before you get to the code, the code is for victims.
Yes. Now that's what I say. Now a lot of people say, I'm not, they'll, and these would be their words because people have used these words. I'm no victim of racism. I don't want anybody calling me a victim, and I don't look at myself as being a victim, and I'm not a victim. Well, the writings of Neely Fuller Jr. do not apply to those people. Very simple. I'm not forcing a viewpoint. I'm just presenting a viewpoint. And as a victim of racism, I choose to do that. For one thing, the racists allow me to do it. It's in a world that they dominate, so I do it. And why not do it if it's my viewpoint? Now, the next person will say, well, I don't have that viewpoint. Well, that person is entitled to not have that viewpoint. The United Independent concept means just that everybody can have their own independent view, and they shouldn't give it up until they see a reason to do so. There are people who have told me that I couldn't be a victim of racism of white supremacy, because white supremacy doesn't exist. I've had people tell me that. And I say, well, I believe that it does exist. But if you believe that it doesn't exist, you get no argument out of me. There's no reason for me to argue. If you say that racism, white supremacy doesn't exist, and a person is not a victim of it. Even if a person says nobody's a victim of it because it doesn't exist. A person can say that. In fact, in the word guide, I invented a term called VGQ, or Victims Guaranteed Qualification, meaning every non-white person can say anything, or should be able to say anything, about race, racism, or counter-racism that he or she chooses to say. Why? Why would that be? Because if racism does exist, and that person perceives someone to be a victim of it, they should be able to comment on it. Certainly if they consider themselves a victim. I consider myself a victim. So therefore, under VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification, I am well qualified to say anything that I want to about race, racism, or counter-racism. Maybe not other things, but certainly about those things. Why? Because I'm a victim of racism. So I can say anything about my victimization that I want to say. And everybody else can too, and should. But no one should be in position to say what somebody else can't say. Now that should be the no-no. Why? Because of the VGQ factor. Everybody who has been a victim of racism or considers themselves to be a victim of racism now should be able to say anything that they want to say about their victimization. If you can't do that, you might as well not do anything. Not deal with the racial subject at all. If you can't do that one simple thing, at least say what you choose to say without anybody shutting you up or telling you shouldn't be saying it. But even if a person says that you shouldn't be saying it, I mean, that's something that shouldn't be said because they don't want anybody to shut them up. So it shouldn't be any arguments about that. That's what the VGQ factor is all about. That's why I made the effort to invent that, because I observed over the years that many black people like to argue with other black people about what they should or shouldn't be saying about racism. Each person should be able to stand up and say whatever is on his or her mind about racism or counter-racism, meaning their ideas about what to do about it. That's counter-racism. Countering racism. That's not expressing their form of racism. That's trying to get rid of racism. That's what counter-racism is, according to logic.
I understand that. Even though I feel like, I think that some things are self-evident. I mean, truth is truth. If you say that racism exists, and then you try to identify it and give it, and say this is what it is, the qualities of it, there's a truth behind that. So, if somebody has an opinion about it and it doesn't speak to the truth of what it is, I guess I wouldn't want to hear that. I mean, but I wouldn't want to take their right to say whatever they have to say, away from them. Because that could cause a problem. Yeah, I can see that. I would just rather write or talk the truth instead of attacking someone's position. I think I understand what you mean by that.
Yes, I mean, because why do that? I mean, no one knows the solution to the race problem who has proven it, because anyone who has proven that they have the solution to the race problem would have done so. Any person who says, I have the solution, let's think in terms of this question. How can anyone have the solution to the system of white supremacy, and the system of white supremacy still exists? That's a contradiction. In other words, when a person has the solution, then no one else can have the problem. That's your proof right there. If I would claim that I have the solution to the race problem, then that means that the problem no longer exists, because I would have proven that I have the solution by seeing to it that it didn't exist. Now, if I say I'm trying to solve the problem, that's two different things. Lots of people try. I say that. I'm trying to solve the race problem. But I have no proof that I have the solution. And so far, no one has shown that they have the proof, because the problem still exists. That's the only criteria. The only way that a person can prove that they have the solution to the race problem is that the race problem no longer exists. That's logic. That's why I say always follow the logic. No matter how eloquent a person might be, no matter how well a person will write, you're correct when you say the truth is the truth, regardless of who tells it. And logic is logic. Logic came with the universe. Cause and effect came with the universe. If I have a solution to any problem, it means the problem doesn't exist, because I've solved it. I said there was a problem until I solved it. But if I haven't solved it, I have no evidence that I have the solution. I'm just talking. I think that should be the correct way to look at it. Now, it may not be. Just because I said it doesn't make it true. But I think that's the logical procedure. And it serves a functional purpose. It keeps people from getting a big head about knowing it all. Because that itself becomes a problem.
Caller in California, if you can hang tight. Someone else called in with a question, or actually two other people. Caller in Massachusetts, did you have a question for Mr. Fuller? Person who called in from Massachusetts, did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Gus, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? I'm having problems with my phone.
We can hear you, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. How you doing, Gus? It's always a pleasure to hear your shows. And Dr. Fuller, I have a question for you, right? And I was wondering, what you think it would be a great idea for black writers and great minds such as yours, right? If you, if writers could start translating their works into languages like Spanish, because as you know, a lot of countries, there's a lot of black people and so-called non-whites down in South America, Central America. And one thing I have seen, just like down there and here, when you see Spanish books that have been, English books that have been translated into Spanish, right? I have never seen really one that has been translated by so-called black writer. Therefore, our people on that side of the Americas, really, we brothers, and we know so little about each other. I mean, you can't see movies on TV that have been translated, but not by so-called blacks, you know. And I say so-called because that's not really the nationality of the people that I call black. They had different names before they were colonized by Europeans. But anyways, I wonder if you think that would be a good idea. I hear so many good things, right? And I sometimes be like, well, if I had the time, because I do other things and I don't have the time, but wonder if you think it would be a good idea that these books can be translated so people in South America can finally, you know, because there's so much history. I mean, when you look at the history of North America, you know, you have to go to a white person to hear about it if you don't speak English. You see what I mean? So I see that as a problem, and I wonder what you think about that.
Well, if I understand the question, if it's a language problem, yes, there are many languages all over the world. In this area of the world, you have some major languages, basically Spanish and English, on what we call the quote-unquote North American continent, and the Middle America continent, sometimes it's referred to as that, or the section of the continent, and then the South American continent, it is called sometimes by some people. And the dominant languages there are Spanish and English, with, if you consider Brazil, you got Portuguese. And but throughout the entire world, and since racism extends all over the world, you have all of the languages of the entire world. So people should just try to understand racism, first of all, what it is and how it works in the form of white supremacy everywhere on the planet. And in whatever language they use, just say that. Say it in their own language. Because it would take too long for each and every individual to learn every language, and it's not very functional anyway. It would take too long. It would be too cumbersome to try to learn every tribal language. There are many, many tribal languages, even among people who are called, quote-unquote, Native Americans or Indians in this area of the world. Lots of different tribal languages, many, many languages. In the 1960s, a lot of people here were talking about learning to speak Swahili, and some of them did. But then they learned also that even in what we call the continent, quote-unquote, of Africa, that there were other languages spoken other than Swahili. Many, many, many languages. Almost, 30, 40 miles away, people would speak a different language sometimes. Small tribes, large tribes, tribal languages going way back, and languages that have come and gone, and languages that have been resurrected. So the functional thing to do is just in whatever language the people speak, try to understand what is being said about racism and all the other problems of the world, because everything, for everybody to be on the correct page, should be about solving problems. And most problems are the same in any language. Most of the problems on this planet among people, they're the same problems, even though they may talk about the problems in different languages. Hunger, disease, water shortages. Different people have different names for water, but water is still water. Everybody understands what water is. Everybody understands, for the most part, what a cloud is, what a mountain is. Different names, but same items. It's just a matter of trying to solve the problems among the people of the planet using whatever language you can. And if you learn to speak 4 or 5 languages, that's fine. Then you speak to the people who understand those languages. And you say the most constructive things. That's the key. Whatever you say in any language, try to make it constructive. Eliminate the non-constructive things that are said. and how they'll say it in every language. And just stick to the most constructive things to say. That's the way people should communicate throughout the planet. And when they don't have the spoken word or the written word, just use sign language until you can get the point over that all you're trying to do is something constructive. And if people have that basic intent, things will work themselves out. At least that's the concept.
Context of white supremacy. If you would like to get Mr. Fuller's books, again, the link, tiny.cc/Fuller. And the order form should be there. You can print it out, get your copy of the code book or the word guide. Caller from New York, person who called in from New York, did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Gus, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to ask my questions and then hang up because it's much easier to hear over the computer speaker than the phone. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Fuller.
Good evening.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of your work. I have two questions for you. The first one is, how would you respond to someone saying that black males have the privilege of patriarchy over white females? And the second question is, in discussing the development of personal code, I noticed that one of the codes that many of the callers reject that you suggested is the one in terms of killing oneself upon killing a white person, if it comes to that. And my question is, why do you think that that particular suggestion of code is at least initially rejected by many of the non-white callers?
Oh, I don't know. People will have to answer that question themselves because they're making the suggestion. See, that's part of the VGQ factor. I mean, just because Neely Fuller makes a suggestion doesn't say that that's the way to go. So the people who don't want to do that, the people who want to engage in what you call classic warfare, quote unquote, in the way that it is usually engaged in, which means kill and run, and kill, and if you're caught, ask for mercy from the person that caught you for doing the killing. If they want to do that, they can do that. I mean, that's the usual way it's done anyway. The reason I suggested that it be done the way that I suggested that it be done, I'm trying to get people to think in terms of killing is not the way to handle things. That's not the best way, period. And the best way for people to understand that is if you willfully and deliberately go out and kill someone. I'm not talking about self-defense, but you hunt someone down to kill them. You should be willing to kill yourself to show that you are not a person who enjoys killing, because that's what people should get out of the habit of. There shouldn't be any such thing as a war hero. It should be called a tragic necessity, even when you kill in self-defense. It shouldn't be any celebration. No one should celebrate the death of anyone, ever, 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 under any circumstance. That should be one of the characteristics of the idealistic universal man and universal woman, which we all should be trying to be in the process of becoming. And one of the main characteristics would be people who do not enjoy killing, do not enjoy participate in killing, do not enjoy seeing anybody else participate in killing, and certainly do not praise anybody who is in the business of killing, even when people are in the business of killing out of absolute necessity. It is nothing about killing people that should ever be praised. There shouldn't be any monuments to people based on how many people they killed. that is a form of insanity and an insult to the creator of this universe. An in-your-face insult for anybody to do that. And I can say that with a degree of, I'll say, I don't use the word credibility, but you could use that word. I carried a gun for a long time in the form of military action myself. And I was a part of 2 branches of military action. And I was in law enforcement in which I carried a gun and had access to machine guns and shotguns and things like that. And at a very early age, I owned a number of guns because I was in a situation in a state that allowed that. And I worshiped guns to a great degree because I had learned to do that even on Christmas Day. I appreciated the little trains and things that I would get under the Christmas tree and other little toys and maybe a pair of shoes. But what I was really looking for is, where's my BB gun? My Red Ryder BB gun. And where's my Hopalong Cassidy revolver? I want to strap it on right now and run outside on Christmas Day in commemoration of Jesus, the birth of Jesus, as they told me. That's what Christmas is supposed to be about. And I want to look up my playmates and run around the house all day saying, bang, bang, fall down, you're dead. So when you have people raised up with that type of mentality, they just might hold on to that mentality when they're 19 years old. And that's why you hear bang, 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 fall down, you're dead, wherever there are black people. In any neighborhood, for the most part, in the northwestern hemisphere. And that's a poisonous idea. That idea should die. It should die by a forceful death. That idea should die. And get out of the habit of worship and death, which is what the white supremacists teach black people to do, depending on who you're going to kill, of course. They want black people killing black people for the most part, or black people killing white people that other white people have directed them to kill. So you get in the habit of thinking, hey, you don't like something? Kill them. You don't like something somebody said? Kill them. Somebody steps on your foot on the bus? Kill them. Killing is fun. Kill and run. Now, the very fact that you run means that you have a weakness there. What are you running from? Why don't you stand by your work? Do you fear someone may be after you for killing the people out here who are doing it? Carjacking and whatnot? Why are you running? You have nerve enough to kill. You should have nerve enough to stand by your work. This is why I say, you deliberately kill someone, you should kill yourself. And you certainly shouldn't blame your work on somebody else. That's your work. You kill someone, stand by your work. Say, yes, I did it. If I had to do it over again, I would do it over again. Anybody that doesn't like it, do what you want to about it. Stand by your work. At least do that. Otherwise, it's nothing to you. And if you stop and think about it, you'll say that it's nothing to you. Too many of us learn at an early age, kill, and go and hide under your grandmother's porch. That's an absolute disgrace. Stand by your work. Got nerve enough to kill? Have nerve enough, if you like death so much, have nerve enough to kill yourself rather than be taken prisoner. At least do that. When you're taken prisoner after killing 3 and 4 people, maybe more, you stand there and say, I'm sorry, I apologize. Completely unacceptable. You take someone out of this existence, be willing to go yourself. Otherwise, perish the thought. Find out something constructive to do. That, I'm belaboring this point because that should be resonant all over this planet from this day forward, if not before. And that's the message we should carry. We should have total contempt for anybody who's in the business of killing, deliberately and unjustly. Self-defense, okay. But hunting down someone and kill them, and then walk around with a smile on your face? What kind of sickness is that? You can't create a person. Oh, you can go through the machinery of producing a baby, but that's not creating the baby. Only the Creator creates people. So when you take people out of this universe, at least have the decency to say that that person should have gone, that's why I took them out, and to show that I have great regard for the existence of people. I'm going to eliminate myself as compensation for what I did. Because that person that I killed should have been killed because they're such a despicable person. They're a person that's doing a whole lot of harm to someone. But I'm still going to show enough regard for a breathing organism that I will cease to breathe myself, because I don't want people to get in the habit of thinking that that's the way to settle every little dispute that comes up. That kind of philosophy has been around like forever. It should be banned forever. Along about now, as long as the people have been on this planet, when you hear about someone kill somebody, you should be talking about something that happened 1,000 years ago. And I'm talking about just one person killing one person. And people should be saying along about now in 2011 that they heard about somebody killing somebody 700 years ago. But it was strictly a rumor, and they don't believe it, because nobody does that kind of nonsense. People are much too intelligent for that. That this planet is not full of a whole bunch of barbarians, which is what it is now. And greatly thanks, in this part of the history of the world, to the white supremacists, who love that type of thing and who teach it to their victims. Just something to think about.
I believe her first question was about if black males, can they exercise quote-unquote patriarchy over white women?
Say that again.
Are black males able to exercise patriarchy over white women? She said, what are your views when people make statements like that?
Well, if I understand the word patriarchy, I guess they mean domination. Black males do not dominate anything or anybody, including themselves. No black male on this planet is in charge of anything. Every black male on this planet, under the system of white supremacy and according to compensatory logic, is subject to white supremacy. So if you're subject to white supremacy and you're black, you're not in charge of anything. You don't have anything. You are allowed to breathe by the white supremacists, who can terminate you anytime they choose to. Most of the time they like to play games with you even when they get ready to terminate you. They chase you around like going on a fox hunt. But if you know anything about the way the fox hunt usually works, sometimes they already have the fox before they turn the fox loose. And then they give the fox what you call a head start. And then they say, tally ho, let's saddle up and go get 'em. And they chase the fox down and beat it to death. Or shoot it. And then go back to the lodge and have a beer or an ale or champagne or whatever. Celebrating killing. To do people the same way, particularly black people. Turn them loose, give them a head start, let them get out of sight, then chase them up and down the highway and shoot them. Oh, what fun. A sport enjoyed by many. Now, that's incorrect. I'll say it again. Killing should not be a sport. Period. Anywhere at any time. For whatever reason. If we're going to have universal man and universal woman. Meaning people of the very best quality that the creator of this universe would be somewhat pleased with, to the extent that the people have enough intelligence to do the things that should be done and have used it in that manner. I hope I didn't deviate too much from the basic question. Did I?
She's listening, the caller. She's listening, so she can type me. She can type in the chat room, or she can email me if she wants clarification, and I'll let you know, Mr. Fuller. Non-Mighty Wick, I think you said you had a question for Mr. Fuller. Your line should be open. Go right ahead.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Fuller. I wanted to know, in your view, what is the correlation between time and deed, and also why did you relate those two? Why did you connect those two definitions in your counter white supremacy word guide?
Because I like people to think outside the box. I mean, in fact, I try to get myself to think outside the box that I have been taught to remain in. And in the textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, I think that we should think in terms of, the universe and what we are supposed to be doing in it. So that would include something called time and deed. We use what we call time. There's something that somebody said is time, and there's something that somebody said is deed, meaning doing things. And so maybe they are two sides of the same coin. That when, and I first started thinking about this when I heard people use expressions like, well, yeah, I have a small cut on my hand. And it's small, so I don't have to do anything to it because time will take care of it. Time does not take care of anything unless there's a deed being done. So even though I may not have put a bandage on the small cut, there are parts of my body that rush to the scene, so I have been told, of where the cut is. There's blood that rushes there. And then it begins a healing process. So that's a deed. That's something going on. That's something that's being done. Even though I didn't deliberately do it, there are things going on in my body that will alert it. So wait a minute, there's a disturbance somewhere in this body. And so our job is to rush to the scene of the disturbance, like an ambulance. Some people call it, your red corpuscles or your white corpuscles or whatever it is they call it. But they say that blood rushes to the area. and starts, and there are elements in the blood that start a healing process. Now, that's a deed. That's something being done. Now, when I looked at it, I said that time would take care of it. Time doesn't do anything, except maybe time does, because maybe time and deed are just two different words that mean the same thing. And so that's what caused me to put it in there. It's more or less a thought presentation. Does time really take care of something? We often say that. Many people often say that. I say that. Well, no big deal. Time will take care of it. No. Time doesn't take care of anything. You're given time. But time expects you to do something, or somebody to do something, or something to do something. And then that's the only thing that you can measure time by. Even when you look at a clock, you're looking, if it's what you call an analog clock, that clock is moving. Now, are you measuring time? Well, yes, and maybe no. Maybe that's all just in your mind that time is being measured, because all you're doing is just looking at some things moving on what we call a clock. But if you imagine that the clock isn't telling you time, then maybe the clock isn't. That's all in your mind, because your mind and the clock are not one and the same. It's just something to think about. My mind kind of gets tangled up when I think about it. Maybe it should, because at least I'm thinking. In order to solve problems, you first have to think, and the first thoughts are going to be pretty tangled. But if you keep thinking, and keep getting in the habit of thinking, and keep wanting to think, maybe you can come up with the solution to problems. And that gets to what I think that we're all supposed to be doing on this planet, logically speaking, is solving problems. Why? Because there are problems to be solved. That's why. We could have been born on a planet where there were no problems. But we were born on a planet that's full of problems. You wake up every morning looking at problems. Go to bed every night looking at problems. When you try to run from problems, the problems run right alongside you. Sometimes they jump in front of you and trip you up. So there's probable cause to believe that everybody's put here to solve problems, and you want to solve problems in the best possible manner. And that means that you use the time that you are given to solve problems by doing things, meaning deed. And time and deed just might be, one and the same. Different names, same action. Could be. I don't know. Something to think about.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
See, if you are on TalkShoe, press *8, and I can get your questions. Before I hit the phone line, someone did write in a question. To what extent will codification establish a system of justice?
I don't know. That's the X factor in algebra or in problem solving. The great unknown. Why? Because I've never done it. But I think that a lot of things have been tried, a lot of approaches. I think the codified approach has not been tried. The white supremacists tried the codified approach in establishing the system of white supremacy. By codification, I mean everybody goes about doing something that would help to establish racism as individuals, wherever they happen to be, just using the logic of how to establish a system of racism, meaning you see non-white people and you figure out a way to dominate and mistreat them. And you do that as an individual. Even with all the mistakes that you make in the process, that becomes your goal. First of all, you have that goal. Then you codify, meaning you figure out a way to go about accomplishing the goal. Just like building a house, or crossing a river, or doing anything. You first decide that this is what you want to do. Then you start trying to figure out a way to do it. How to cross that river. How to build that boat to cross the river. What materials to use to build a boat. Or maybe you figure out, I don't need a boat to cross the river. Might be easier to build a bridge. Might be better to build a bridge. So you build a bridge across the river rather than build a boat to cross the river. Or build a house, or to build anything, to assemble anything. But the first thing you do is focus on what is your goal. What is it you're trying to accomplish? And you codify, meaning you figure out a way to go about doing it in a manner that will get it done in the best possible manner. The white supremacists of the world, someone thought of that some time ago, apparently, based on prima facie evidence, and went about the business of figuring out how to do it and got it done. The non-white people of the world haven't even thought about it, except to the extent that they say they don't like it, and that some leader somewhere should take care of it. But each individual person is supposed to be a leader. That's the one thing we haven't thought about as victims of racism. Until just recently, just start tinkering with the idea. I'll say relatively recently. I've been thinking about it for about 50 years. But that's the first step toward getting anything done, is to think about it in that vein. Stop waiting on a leader. We've been trained to wait on leaders. They say, well, we'll probably get another leader maybe of some sort. Hopefully, maybe in another 10, 15, maybe another 50 years we'll come up with some kind of leader. Maybe when the Messiah comes back, he'll take care of it. So that is not the type of thinking that the white supremacists use. They get busy as individuals. They don't wait around. And each white person anywhere who believes in white supremacy gets busy themselves as individuals. They don't sit around waiting to get a leader or talking about what we need as a leader, and they don't do that. And if they had done, if they had done that in the beginning in establishing white supremacy, it would not have turned out to be the smooth running machine that it has been since it has been established. Because leaders make mistakes. But when you have a system where everybody participates in the system, the mistakes little by little cure themselves by trial and error, by each individual who makes the mistake. So that means that all the other people do not make mistakes that individual made. They keep doing what they are doing. It's a very simple concept, but it's never been seriously tried in a counter-racist vein. And black people are at pain to even think about wanting to do that. We always want to come up, to wait on the super intelligent leader to figure out everything. And we'll just sit on the log. But there's a logical reason why we would think that way, because we have always had leaders, and all of them have been white. That's what white supremacy means. So we're in the habit of never wanting to think ourselves as individuals, use the minds that we were issued. We just want somebody else to do all the thinking. Do all the thinking, spend all night long, burn midnight oil, doing all the thinking, and then wake me up in the morning and tell me what to do. Now, as slaves to the system of white supremacy, that's the black mentality, which is understandable because it's a habit. We're always waiting on someone to come around the corner and tell us what to do. Why? Because we don't have any idea of what we should be doing, and not looking for an idea of what we should be doing. We want somebody else to tell us that. Go here, go there, lift this, lift that barge, tote that bale, get a tattoo, get drunk, use drugs. Why? Because I said so. Well, who are you? I'm the person that tells you what to do, since you don't have anything to do yourself. You don't have a mind of your own. You're always copying somebody else. That's all you know. That's all your father knew. That's all your grandparents knew. Why? Because I've been in charge of all of you. Because I'm a white supremacist. I'm the person that tells everybody what to do. I tell you who's pretty. I tell you who's ugly. And you believe it. And act on it. I tell you who to kill. I tell you who to hug, who to kiss. I tell you everything. You don't have a mind of your own. You'll do anything that I say do. And proof of it is I'm looking at you every day. Anything that I tell you to do, you'll do it. I don't tell you directly, because I'm smooth with that. I just put it out there. I got all kinds of ways of putting it out there. And you pick it up. And it's even worse than that. Once you pick it up, you think that you invented it. You think it all came from you. But if you tell yourself the truth in the wee hours of the morning, you don't really remember where you got it, where you got this idea of doing this and doing that, and half the things that you're doing, maybe more. Certainly everything that's major. Everything you're looking forward to doing, I planned it for you because you got no plan of your own. So that's the way that works. Now, we're talking about codification. Black people need to center on a counter-racist code that's designed to do one basic thing: replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. And the system of justice, to explain it again, means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. No person, white or non-white, is mistreated. And guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help, and practice doing that every day. It's not a matter of sitting around waiting. It's something that you do every day, something that you keep in mind every day when you get up. If somebody proposes something to you, you say, wait a minute. This thing that you're telling me to do, is anybody going to get mistreated? That's the first question you ask. Is anybody going to get mistreated? I want to know that before we even start. Before I get out of the chair, I want to know that. Before I go running down the road doing this and doing that like we are trained to do, start doing things without a reason. No, I want to know, is anybody going to get mistreated in this deal? That's question one. Question two, the person who needs help the most, is that person going to be helped? The person might be you. So you certainly should embrace that. In many cases, it is you. Even if it just means getting the correct information, which is something that's real difficult to get, even in conducting that particular conversation. Because depending on who's doing the talking, people can be very misleading. That's why you want clarity and focus. Clarity and focus on any move that you make. And what will that be doing in that process, just that simple process? If each and every black person does that every day, we will be in the process, probably without even realizing it, of being what you call deniggerized. Because the niggerization process is to teach you how not to use your mind to think. Just go around just bumping into things all day long. And then when you get hurt, when you bump up against something, just start swinging at anything that happens to be close to you. Whether it's your next door neighbor or lamp post or whatever. Just lashing out, just a bundle of emotions. No thoughts. Not a single thought, just all emotions. And what's worse, bragging about being emotional. Bragging about being emotional. Well, I'm very emotional. I got a lot of emotions. Black people got a lot of emotions. That's why we always moving. Always moving, going in what direction and for what reason. Even a roach has a reason for going anywhere and doing anything that makes sense to roaches. We should at least have roach sense.
Context of white supremacy. We'll check. The person that called in from Tennessee. Did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Yes, I do have a question. I'd like to ask Mr. Fuller, I hear you speak of a creator. Who is this creator and why? How does it work? And my other question is, what is your definition of free will?
Okay, who is the creator? I don't know. I do know when people ask me about. In fact, someone asked me, did I believe in God? And I said, only God knows. I gave the codified response. Only God knows, and only God is qualified to say if I believe in God. Only God knows, and only God is qualified to say. Now, having said that, I believe that there is a creator of me. Why? Because if I created myself, I don't remember it. I don't remember how I did that. If I knew how to do that, I would say that logic would tell me that I would know how to stay here as long as I wanted to, too. And I would know how to create other people, I guess. I know how to go through the motions, but that's not being creative. See, creation means starting with nothing. Absolutely nothing. People do not create anything. People arrange what is already created. According to what? According to Neely Fuller? No. According to logic. A person will say, well, I created this. No, you arranged something that was already here. I've never met anyone who claimed that they made something out of nothing. Because even nothing had to be there. Nothing is something. So something had to create nothing in order for something else to be created in the nothing. That's the logic. So I don't know what form the creator takes, or creators. It might have been a team. I don't know. I can't say. Not and tell the truth. I just have to say the truth, which is I don't know. But I do know that I didn't do it, and I never met anyone who claimed that they did it. I've heard people say that they were God. But then, I would think that if a person is God and a person is a creator, why, when they get hit by a car, they call out for help? And they want somebody who is not a God to get them to a hospital where they meet somebody else who's not a God and say, save me. Well, now, seems like a contradiction there. That car that hit you should have just, sent you sailing through the air, and you got up and brushed off your clothes and said, no problem. I decided to stay here. I've never seen that happen. Haven't heard of it happening either. A body torn apart, and because, if you're a creator, hey, tear my body apart. I'll put it right back together again because I can create. I created everything. I created the leaves on the trees. I know Neely Fuller never created anything. And so that's why I say that. So the answers about the creator and why I refer to a creator, I just say I didn't do it. I didn't make those leaves on the trees. I don't make the tornadoes. I didn't produce water. Lots of things I haven't done that were here. And if I did it, I don't remember it. And I'm telling the truth about that. I don't remember doing any of that. I don't remember making the sun and the moon and the earth and all that. I don't remember doing it. Now, if I was a creator, it seems like I would remember all of that. I would remember what I created in order to keep it going. I open my hand, and I can clench my hand into a fist. I can spread the fingers and whatnot. Now, this is a part of me. Now, how I do that, I have no idea. How I can shut my eyes and keep them shut and then open them simply by thinking about it. Now, how I do that, I have no idea, and I'm doing it. I'm not asking anybody, can I do it? I can do those things, but I don't know how I do it. I think that if I was a creator, I would know how I did this. I would understand everything about it. I would understand every drop of blood in my body and know what every vein is and what that vein does. But if I created all of the veins in my body, I have no memory at all, telling the truth now, of having done it. And it seems strange to me that if I was a creator, I would remember those things. I could tell you every vein that's in my body and what it does and what it's doing right this second. And every vein that's in everybody else's body and what it's doing. And how long it's going to do it. Right to the second. I would be the super fortune teller of everything. I could foretell what's going to be happening 80 trillion years from now, if I was the creator of this grand universe that we have been given. I don't think that's me. So I figured there's something out there other than me at work here. That it's not just all about me. That's what I think. I could be in error, but that's what I think. Now, some people might say, well, that's shallow thinking. No, I am a God. I just don't know that I'm a God. Well, it seems like if I was a God, I would at least know that much. And nobody could fool me into not knowing that. I hope that answers that part of the question. Now, what was the second part? Because not being a creator, I don't remember the second part of the question.
She asked about free will.
Oh, yes, free will. Oh, yes. Now, lots of us, I guess everybody has will. Now, I don't know about that free. I guess the will is free because you have it. Nobody gave it to you except whatever created you. They gave you that free will. That's free will. You have the will to do something. I might have the will to jump off of a building and fly. Now, that's free will. But now, the logic might kick in and say, wait a minute. I've seen birds do that, but I'm not quite built like a bird. And without jumping off a building, I have fallen down on the sidewalk, which is a short distance, and it hurt. So maybe I shouldn't try that. Even though my will tells me that I can do it. I can try to do it. Jump off of a 10-story building and see if I can fly by having free will to think about it. Mind over matter, they call it. But so far, the logic has told me, best I find something better to do, because that might not work. Logic tells me that that just might not work, just from what I've heard and the little experiences I've had from a baby of just falling down a very short distance. You can break something, you can bruise something. And if I jump off of a 10-story building, I'm quite sure I'll get more than just a bruise. And not being the creator of all things, I don't think I could remain among the breathing. I don't think. Based on prima facie evidence of people who have tried it. Exceptions to all rules, some have done it. I've heard of stories of people who have fallen off of a 10-story building, and by some quote-unquote miracle, they survived. I wouldn't recommend it for the average person to run out and do it right now, en masse. Millions of people, just to see if they can cause the cosmos, or whatever you want to call it, to turn upside down suddenly. That people who would do it now would just go floating through the air. I don't think so. I wouldn't recommend it as a trial thing. I would not.
Mm-hmm. The person that called in from California, did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Greetings. Mr. Fuller, I'm listening to you, and I have a lot. I could ask you a lot of questions. I am wondering about a lot of things, some of the things that you say. But I was thinking, in your view, would you say that codification is an experiment?
Would I say that codification is what?
An experiment.
Oh, yes. Because, anything that you're trying to do is an experiment every day. Just trying to change a tire on a car is an experiment until you actually change the tire, until you have completed the mission. It's always an experiment, and no one has ever solved a race problem. That's what I set out to do. So you measure your experimentation by whether or not you have completed what it is you started out to do. I've told people for years, I just didn't want to improve things, for black people. No, I wanted to replace the system of white supremacy with a system of justice. Now, justice has never been produced by anybody. But I say, so? Just because it's never been done doesn't say it can't be done. Because I have a belief, and that is that anything that people can think about doing or plan on doing, and it can be done, possibly, anything that people put together, people can take apart. Now, that's the basic thing that I use. Anything that people put together, people can take apart. If they put it together. Now, if they didn't put it together, that might be a different story. But the system of racism was put together by people. They even brag about having done it. They even write books about how they did it, which a lot of people don't pay attention to within the context that it should. They tell you how they did it. Deceit and violence. They put it right in your face. This is how we did it. We fool people. We have them thinking that something is valuable when it's not, and something that is not valuable, we have them thinking that it's valuable. Just a simple thing like that. And millions of people fall for it. And we just keep doing it. And then when they show a little huffiness about it, they get obstinate about it, then we do harm to them. Put them back in line. Keep thinking the way I want you to think. The system of racism is a very simple thing. It's not complicated at all. Deception and violence. Tell them anything, promise them anything, and give them nothing. Tell them the things that they should be doing. Glamorize it. And when they say that it doesn't make sense, look at them with a straight face and say, oh, it does make sense. You're just not thinking. You should think seriously about this, because this is very serious. And what they'll be talking about is something very silly. But if they keep talking and keep talking and keep talking, and they are the greatest talkers in the world, the most effective talkers, the most effective communicators in the world that the world has ever seen, is the white supremacists talking to a non-white person. They're very effective. And the next thing you know, by repeating something over and over again, pretty soon you start nodding your head without even recognizing that you're nodding your head and saying, yeah, that does make sense, doesn't it? Yes, now that I think about it, yeah, now as you keep saying it, oh, yes, oh, I'm all for it. Oh, I must embrace this. This is wonderful. I should have thought of this myself. That's all that they do, over and over again. Rather than listen to them patiently and politely, always be polite, and say, you know what? I have no reason to believe that you're telling me the truth. And until I see the results of what you're talking about by you trying it, I would rather reserve any action that I will take. If we could just do that much, we might be miles ahead on this longest journey.
Pam, if you had a question for Mr. Fuller, your line is open, and the other folks that dialed in, it's *8. *8 if you have a question. Pam, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you for letting me ask another question. This is something that I struggle with, and I get emails from people who also are struggling with it, and that is what, Mr. Fuller, what do you consider the most constructive and logical method or behavior that non-whites can use to deal with other non-whites who are being used by white supremacists to harm non-whites?
Only contact. Minimize contact by minimizing unnecessary and non-constructive minimize conflict by minimizing non-constructive and non-necessary contact more than anything else. See, codification is about doing things. It's not talking about just not talking about maybe doing something one of these days or waiting on a leader to do something. No, it's about doing things every day. And that's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing. Make every contact that you make with everybody a constructive contact. Otherwise, you don't have any business making contact. Now, that is a very, very difficult thing for black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere to do, because we are very, very socially oriented people. We like to reach out. We're on cell phones all day, nonstop. Even when we're talking about nothing but grief, non-constructive things. Because we experience a lot of non-constructive things. But why spread that poison? We called up people with the intention of doing nothing but arguing. I heard 3 cell phone conversations today myself. I wasn't eavesdropping in what you call the traditional sense. I was just passing by. But people had cell phones to their ears, and all of it was bitterness. I didn't hear, in the 3 conversations that I overheard, none of it was pleasant. Why pass around all of that unpleasant poison? Silence is a great improvement over that.
Today's Sunday. They weren't talking about Jesus?
No, the conversation I heard one conversation a fellow was saying his words. I tried to remember the words so that I could be accurate, because you want to be accurate about things. He was saying, oh, well, he told me that he was robbed. See, pathology. Now, that might have been a necessary conversation, but just think. You know, you walk past a black person. It was a black male walking down the sidewalk. And what was he talking about? A robbery. Presumably involving another black person. Somebody being robbed. Something unpleasant. Might have been necessary. That might have been a necessary conversation, but I'm saying the average conversation that you hear from black people, on the average, most of it is about some type of stress, some type of horrendous thing going on. Okay, the next conversation was about, I told you to be here. And blankety blank blank, here goes the profanity. And I don't know where you got that from. That's the way that conversation went. That was a young black lady who was sitting down in an open area, and she was yelling into that cell phone. And I'm walking along thinking, is there any pleasantness in the existence of a black person anywhere? Is there anything that's pleasant going on? Anything that's constructive? Is this the type of thing that you have to hear year after year, day after day, into infinity? And then worse still, well, that's our culture. When we get together, that's what we're supposed to be about. Well, if that's our culture, we shouldn't wish that on E.T. or anybody. And I've said this for years. Basic black culture is something that shouldn't be copied by anybody who's reasonably sane. Because culture is what? Culture is what you do. A lot of people look at culture like, oh, no, that's not black culture. Black culture is the pyramids and all like that. No. Black culture is what you do every day. Don't put that off on any pyramid. That's just something that's a cliche that's easy to say. White culture is what they do every day. And what they do every day is dominate non-white people. And do it very efficiently. Black culture is just anything that happens to be coming down the pike, if we tell the truth. We even had a slang for it a few years ago. It was called just something to do. I started hearing people say that. I say, well, what's going on here? And nothing in particular. There's something to do. We are something to do people. Something to do like what? Anything. Anything. You name it. If it looks like it's something new, hey, don't even think about it. Just jump right in it. Something different, jump right in it. Well, what about asking questions? What about, oh, that's too much trouble. I mean, take the joy out of life. Just jump right in it and think about it later, regardless of what it is. Become a part of it. Get with it. I saw somebody with his pants hanging down this evening. This is true. And I haven't seen this before, so somebody have to tell me about this. He had his belt with his pants about halfway down his rear end. And he had shorts that said, "What's up?" Now, maybe somebody else out there has seen that. That's the first time I saw it was today. Somebody has gone somewhere and manufactured some shorts. And say, well, since you got a whole cadre of people out here with their pants hanging down and with, and you can see their shorts, males, black males, why not write something on it and sell them? And tell them how to wear them. And charge them for it. And tell them that makes them distinctive. It said, "What's up?" That's what it said. Question mark. Printed on black shorts, yellow letters. In a business establishment where I went today, here in Washington, D.C. I saw that.
Just for the record, it is Sunday, June 19th, what they call Father's Day, just for the record. Person that called in, Jay, I believe, had a question. If you have a question for Mr. Fuller, Jay, your line is open.
The top? Okay, why do white people study us and non-white people don't study non-white people that much? White people that much?
I didn't quite understand the question.
Okay. Why do white people don't, I forgot. Why do white people study non-white people and non-white people don't study white people that much?
Because of our training. People act according to their training. That's the logical conclusion I've come to. Because I act according to what I've trained, what I've been trained to do, for the most part, but I try to do some thinking of my own, and to the extent that I do that, white supremacists might say that I have broken training. It's like you can train a dog, okay, to do certain things, and the dog will keep doing those things until there's some other input coming into the dog's brain, because even dogs have brains. And this is why some people who are dog owners, you might say, sometimes will say, someone's been messing with my dogs, mine. Someone's been retraining my dog. Well, because my dog is not acting the way that it usually acts. My dog usually doesn't go outside the fence. But either someone has been coaxing my dog to come outside the fence, or my dog has taken over a mind of its own and decided to go outside the fence. And people who are prisoners, as well as dogs or any organism that has some type of motivation itself, should use that self-motivation, because every organism receives messages from its creator. That's a theory that I have, and I think is correct. That's why every person should listen to that little voice that comes into their mind that says certain things to them. Messages are sent to each individual all the time, every day. Messages are sent. No two people are exactly alike. That's why there are two people. even when they're twins. And there are messages that are sent to each individual on this planet. Just like whatever created you gave you a mind, and that mind is a receiver where you receive messages. This is why people sometimes say, I just thought of something. Now, a question is raised, a logical question. Where was that thought before you got it? That thought was somewhere out there, presumably from the creator of thoughts. And so the thought came into your mind at a certain time in a certain place. Now you have to be able to interpret what that thought means or how you got it. It might be something that you put a spin on and wove it into other thoughts in an incorrect manner. Or you might be getting a thought in all its purity, and usually you can tell whether you're getting a pure thought or not. A thought that hadn't entered your mind at all, but it seems like it is of constructive value. That's the one that you listen to, regardless of what everybody else is saying around you, because they are not sent the message that is being sent to you. Maybe it's sent to a lot of people at the same time, same message. And maybe it's a message that's only being sent to you. That's why you really have to think about it and measure whether or not it is of constructive value.
Someone in the chat room, they wanted you to share your views on, polygamy, having more than one sexual partner. And especially, I was curious if you could give that in the context of your codified suggestion of sexual intercourse no more than 2 times per week.
Yes, that's the way it stands. Even where there is polygamy, it should be that way. Even when a person has more than one partner, it should be that way. Because it has to do with economics, meaning the use of time and energy. That's what economics is. How do you use your time and energy? And a lot of time and energy is sometimes spent in the act of sexual intercourse and our sexual play. And sometimes too much. Now, what is too much? When it's taking time and energy away from other things that need doing, that's when it's too much. So if you figure twice every 7 days, that seems to be reasonable worldwide, regardless of what form it takes with how many partners. Some people in some parts of the world, have 2, 3, 4 partners, wives. In some places I've heard they have polyandry, which is a woman has 2 and 3 husbands for whatever reason. That's the way the society is set up. But the act of sexual intercourse should be limited for constructive purposes in the use of time and energy. And that's the main thing I'm talking about. I'm not talking about customs and morality, which, particularly in this day and time, customs and morality all are in question. We're going through a period of great flux, you might say, and huge confusion, much of it caused by the white supremacists. Because among non-white people, they are pushing gender contempt and gender confusion all over the world. I'm making that flat accusation that the white supremacists are using that as a strategy to strengthen the system of white supremacy and to weaken non-white people with all of this gender confusion, all of the arguments about what constitutes gender, the so-called new arguments. The arguments really are not new. They're just being recycled and refocused and aimed at this point in history, at least in my observation, aimed strictly at non-white people, even though a lot of white people are engaging in it. That's a part of the deception. But like I've said previously in this same exchange of views, and I would ask everybody to pay attention to the racial factor in this pushing of telling males, black males particularly, whatever the white people do under this thing, I would like to say this. I think they can handle it, whatever it is. But before black people forge ahead on this, I think we should examine every facet of it before we buy into it. It may be the greatest thing since sliced bread, or however you want to put it, but I don't think so, because the white supremacists are too eager to push it off on black people worldwide, non-white people worldwide. The white supremacists are doing this, basically telling non-white males that they really shouldn't be males, they should be females. Just pretend that they are females and try to do the things that females do completely, regardless of how their bodies are structured. And then tell the non-white females, what you need to be is a male. Somebody made a mistake by making you a female or having you think that that's what you are. You should give up on that. You should appreciate thinking that you are masculine and start trying to do the things that are characteristic sexually of a person who is a male, and figure out how to go about doing it. And then the world will be a better place. All of you black people, it will solve your problems. There's no reason to believe that that's the truth.
Wow. I just saw the documentary. People had been talking about the Freedom Riders from the so-called civil rights movement, and they admitted as much. Mr. John Lewis and the other folks were saying a part of why this drew so much attention and continues to do so is because you had white people being mistreated. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I mean, black people getting beat up on the bus, I mean, that's every day under white supremacy up until very recently. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, the fact that this whole episode gets so much attention just because they did have white people who were the victims.
Yes, white people have always victimized each other. They worship war, not white people particularly in general, but the history of many malicious white people. Not all white people. Never been all of anybody doing anything. But too many white people have dominated scenarios for too long where violence and death were worshipped, even writing books about worship and violence and death. And too many have done that, and that's been passed on. And they slaughter each other. That's why they are very skilled at mass slaughter. And of course, when they could teach non-white people the same thing, and the non-white people who are already doing it, they got them to do more of it. Don't give up on it. Embellish it, refine it, figure out how to do more of it, worship it, become worshipers of death. Rather see people dead than see them breathing. Like to see the bodies piled up. Love the body count. Gun smoke. Burning flesh. Napalm in the morning or any other time. It's not the way to run this wonderful planet or any other planet. Now, I'm not going to be able to continue at this point. And I didn't want to cut off so abruptly either, because there might be some other people who were waiting. But the points that I did make, I want them to be thought about. Just thought about. Not because Neely Fuller said them, but simply because they are thoughts that are out there. And like I said, keep in mind what the focus is, to replace the system of racism with the system of justice, and to try to do that every day as individuals wherever you happen to be. Not wait on someone else to do anything. Not just stand around trying to find somebody else to criticize for not doing this and not doing that. Do everything yourself, like you're the only person who is on the planet to do it. Put that in your mind. That's the United Independent Way. Even if you're the only person on the planet left to carry out this assignment, just say, well, it's my assignment, whether anybody else takes it as their assignment or not. And if you think about it, what other thing that could you be doing that would be better than trying to help make the world the type of place that it ought to be since you're in it? Just on that logic alone. And a system of justice would be better than a system of racism, which is what you're stuck with. Now, with your permission, I'd like to go now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir, and thank you for inviting me.
For sure. Enjoy your evening, and we'll speak soon.
We'll talk.
Good evening. Context of white supremacy. Always thoroughly enjoy having Mr. Fuller on the program. I think he provides a lot of clarity for non-white people. He's definitely still a victim. He would tell you so himself, but I think he is a lot less confused about the system of white supremacy. We'll take a quick commercial break. We do have a news clip, and I'll get some input about tomorrow's program. We'll be right back. Context of white supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everybody, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S Radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed-packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, for more information on racism, white supremacy, and to invest in my counter-racist efforts, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Context of white supremacy. Again, always, man, I'm privileged to have Mr. Fuller on the program. And again, he, man, is super generous with his time. I'm glad we were able to get a lot of callers, people to ask questions. We still had quite a few spectators. You know, I hope they were able to listen and get constructive information. But glad folks had lots of good questions for Mr. Fuller. We have a news report. We'll also have a broadcast on tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be on at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific. Part of the program, I would like to focus on, I guess, some of what Mr. Fuller touched on around how we view white people. In my view, we are going to need, and when I say we, I'm talking about non-white people. A big part of the problem is that there needs to be a fundamental change in the way that we view white people. We've been, groomed to care after them, white identification. That is a big part of that niggerization process that Mr. Fuller touched on. And I think a big part of changing that is viewing white people at minimum suspected racists. And I think it would be accurate. White equals racist. Mr. Fuller, he said, I believe white culture is the culture of dominating non-white people. I think that's accurate, and I think our understanding of white people needs a radical change. I don't like using that term radical, but a tremendous shift in our understanding and view of white people. And this is going to come up again. The same thing Mr. Fuller just touched on. This is going to come up again because Dick Gregory will be back on the C.O.W.S this week, this Thursday. Mr. Gregory will be on the exact date, June 23rd. This coming Thursday, June 23rd. The program time will be 8:01 Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5:01 Pacific. Dick Gregory will be back on the C.O.W.S, and he'll be here specifically to talk about his involvement in the case, the victim of white supremacy, Mr. James Byrd, black male. He was drugged to death in Texas. You had admitted racist, at least one admitted white supremacist involved. They were convicted. I believe two of the white men were sentenced to execution, and one of them he just was sentenced, or excuse me, they just set the date for his execution. It'll be in September. Mr. Gregory was involved in that case, and he took the position that there should be mercy for these white men. He did not want them executed, and I just want to hear his views about the case. I think it's important that non-white people should know about what happened to Mr. James Byrd Jr., the victim. And I also think, it's important. I think it's important to hear his views. I'm very interested to hear his views, why he thinks this white person should not be executed, and what he thinks would be just, what he thinks would be the correct way to deal with a situation like this. But that'll be this Thursday. Dick Gregory back on the cows. At any rate, I did have a news report I wanted to share really quick. News report. Are changes to the Grammys a subtle form of racism? This is from May 27th, 2011. I hadn't heard anything about this. Carlos Santana, Paul Simon, and others are speaking out against a decision by the Grammy Awards to cut more than 30 categories for the 2012 ceremony, the Associated Press reports. In April, the Recording Academy announced it would hand out only 78 trophies each year going forward, a 31 award drop from the previous contest. But a coalition of musicians, led by four-time Grammy-winning Latin jazz artist Bobby Sanabria, is now protesting the change. Simon, in a letter to the Academy's president, said that it was unfair to lump disparate styles of music into larger categories. Santana, Sanabria, and others say they see a racist white supremacist bent to the Academy's rule change. Carlos Santana and his musician wife, Cindy Blackman Santana, wrote a letter of protest to the Academy, saying, to remove Latin jazz and many other ethnic categories is doing a huge disservice to the brilliant musicians who keep the music vibrant for their fans, new and old. We strongly protest this decision, and we ask you to represent all of the colors of the rainbow when it comes to music and give ethnic music a place in the heart of music lovers everywhere. Sanabria, who is working with musicians including Eddie Palmieri and Arturo O'Farrill, said the ethnic music was unfairly targeted. I would replace ethnic with non-white. The non-white music was unfairly targeted and called it a subtle form of racism. The Academy has responded that the category elimination is set for 2012, but may be reconsidered in the future. This report is on theatlantic.com under entertainment. This is from May 27th, 2011. Are changes to the Grammys a subtle form of racism? All areas of people activity, all areas of people activity. With that said, again, we will be back tomorrow. That would be Monday. The goal every day for the month. Yeah, we should have some really constructive programs. We should have the white woman, she wrote and directed Suspected Racist. She wrote and directed the documentary film Black Soldier Blues. She should be on the program on the 25th, this Friday. She'll be joining us live from Australia. Really important documentary film. It basically shows during World War II, Australia, they had a quote-unquote, they had a racist white supremacist policy in Australia, and they did not want non-white people. This is explicit actual history of white supremacy. And so white people in this area of the world, the United States, they were sending black non-white soldiers to Australia. This is during World War II. There was a big argument about that. White people in both these different areas, they had to work this out. Of course, they did not want the black males having sexual intercourse with the white women in Australia. Cowbell ring. But just incredible documentary. It is online. I've discussed it before. When I brought it up before, I don't think I didn't have a lot of resources, and I still don't, but now having the ability to make calls internationally, I was able to track her down, and she said she would love to share more information about the project. It is extremely constructive. I mean, global understanding of white supremacy, and I mean, disgraceful treatment of some of these victims. They have black people who are in the Army. You've got World War II going on, armed combat, and they won't give the black soldiers a rifle. They won't give them a gun because they think that they might shoot at some of the white people. I mean, incredible. And they have a lot of the veterans, what they call veterans, black soldiers who participated in this conflict. They are speaking directly. They've got them on camera, and they're telling stories about what happened to them, how they were treated, racism they experienced from other soldiers, their teammates ostensibly. But just it's fascinating, and yeah, I'm glad we'll be able to get on the program. That'll be this coming Friday. With that, I was going to check. I'll check since he's on the line. Negritos, did you have a hand up? Negritos, did you have a question or comment you wanted to get in? The caller with the handle Negritos, did you have a question or comment you wanted to get in really quick? Okay. Not hearing you, sir. I thought I had your line open, but I'm not hearing you. Are you there, Negritos? Try again. Trying your line one more time, sir. Negritos, is your line open? Not sure. Could be racist. Could be racist interference. The switchboard has been acting a little nutty. I don't know if people are having trouble. Yeah, it looks like it could be some racist interference, but yeah, I'll check in a few moments, see if you're able to call back in to work it out. At any rate, Black Soldier Blues. It's on YouTube. You can watch it online. I think it's only about an hour. I would highly recommend it. Very constructive information, and the writer-director of the film, she will be on the program this Friday. So Dick Gregory, suspected racist documentarian from the area of the world known as Australia. Dr. Anthony Yoon, we played the sound clip. Listener got me his contact information. This is a non-white male, so-called Asian. He is a plastic surgeon, and he wrote a book about racism that he experienced, about his plastic surgery career. Real interesting. He'll be on the program next week. Broadcasting every day. I think Pam, I think we should have a program as well coming up this week. So should be constructive. If you have suggestions, ideas for guests, shoot me an email, let me know, and yeah, we'll try and get them on. With that, I'm going to exit. Oh, I'll try to see Negrito's call back in. I'll try your line again, sir. Negrito's way. Did you have a question or comment, sir? Negrito's way. Your line is open. Did you have a question or comment, sir? Okay, I tried twice. At any rate, thank you everyone for listening in. Again, Mr. Fuller's book, if you want to order, the address is tiny.cc/Fuller. Real easy. It should be in the description. Tiny.cc/Fuller. Put that in. You can print it out. You can get the Word Guide, Code Book. You can get both of them together. Definitely constructive information for anyone who is serious about replacing the system of white supremacy with justice immediately. We will be back tomorrow. That would be Monday, June 20th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We'll have, if you want to do any of the role play activities, codification. I know some people wanted time to revisit some of the harassment from racist woman on the job, so we can make time for that as well. But we will be on tomorrow evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, context of white supremacy. Thank you for supporting the program. We will be back. We'll be back soon. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out.